Hello again, wonderful people. How are you all doing? Welcome back again to another series of Struggle with Not Sunday. You guys know what we do here, and if you're just seeing my face for the first time, I have to say a big welcome to you. Thank you for clicking on this video, and I promise you're not going to regret clicking on this video. And to my returning subscribers, my MVPs, you guys, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming back to watch my videos. I really love you guys. Now let's look at, from the topic already, you know what we're talking about today. So today's topic is about a nurse that got struck off. Why? Because she refused to do her duties as a nurse, which is perform CPR on a patient that was coding. Now, coding is just blah 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 medical jargons. So a patient that was deteriorating. I don't know. I'll put the meaning here for people that don't understand. But this is a patient that wasn't doing well health-wise, and this nurse had a duty of care to perform CPR on a patient, but she did not perform the CPR on this patient, and now has been struck off by the NMC. Because why wouldn't you do your work as a nurse to even start with? Guys, let's go into this story and know exactly how this played out. Guys, one thing I love about the NMC is that before they come to conclusions like this, trust me, they have gone through all the possible reasons. They have looked for so many evidences before they can actually say, okay, you are not fit to practice and you are not, safe to take care of the public, before they go ahead to make that grave decision, which is to strike you off the nursing register to practice anywhere as a registered nurse. They usually try to suspend you for some time or give you some form of strike before they even get to that point where they are like, okay, no more, you can't practice, you are a threat to the public more so we don't want you on the register again, so please bye. So according to what happened here, this lady actually had a lot of charges against her, and we're going to be looking at some of them. So I have gotten the story from the RCN website, and I'm going to be reading, of course, so please follow me and let's read together. So it says a nurse has been struck off for not attempting cardio-pulmonary resuscitation, which is also known as CPR, on a nursing home resident after confusing her with another resident with a similar surname who had a do not attempt CPR notice in place. Now, Rosalind Apis, which is the name of the nurse, later falsely claimed that she had started chest compressions on the female resident. So basically, when they started the hearings or started the investigation, she actually now started telling the NMC that she actually performed CPR on this patient that they said she didn't perform CPR on, which I must tell you was a terrible lie. Also apologized for failing to call an ambulance. So this is a nursing home, and most times they probably do not even have a doctor on ground. So sometimes the nurses have to be the ones to take charge of the shift, and then if there's an emergency or something, they do what they can do as nurses, their own obligation, but they will have called out for help in emergency situations, call the ambulance to take this patient to like a more renowned hospital that can take care of the patient's need at that time. So this lady, the patient was coding and she didn't call the ambulance, she didn't even do CPR, nothing, she didn't call for help. She just allowed this patient to die simply because she mixed up this patient with another patient that had similar surnames. We're going to get into discussing it. Let's keep reading. Miss Apis made the claim during an internal investigation at the Kestle Grove Residential and Nursing Home in Hertfordshire, where she worked. Now, NMC documents show that during a night shift on the 29th of July 2017, Miss Apis failed to call an ambulance for the residents and incorrectly told a doctor there was a DNA CPR notice in place. Now, DNA CPR means do not attempt cardiopulmonary resuscitation. She also phoned the family of the resident who had a DNA CPR notice to tell them that their loved one was deteriorating. Once the mix-up became apparent, she failed to contact the family again to tell them that she had made a mistake. Separately, Ms. Apis was found to have failed to escalate an incident in which a male resident at the home behaved in a way that was sexually inappropriate towards a female resident, and the inappropriate behavior was later repeated. They've given this nurse 28 days to appeal against this order. Now, Helen Guest, presenting the case on behalf of the NMC, said that Miss Apis's failure to identify the patient correctly and to put things right when she realized her mistake was compounded by her dishonesty about administering CPR. Mrs. Apis's failings fell far short of the expected standards of registered nurses and consequently amounted to serious misconduct, she said. In deciding to strike her off the register, the panel took note of the fact that Miss Apis, who did not attend the hearing, had previously received a 5-year caution for dishonesty in 2012. So you can see the repetition going on here. The panel accepted Miss Miss Guest's argument that there had been no evidence of any real insight, remorse, or remediation on Miss Appis's behalf. A statement from the nursing home said the nurse involved was at fault in the incident and not the home. Of course, they have to cover themselves. Miss Appice had 28 days to appeal against the striking of order. Until then, an interim suspension order will be in place. Guys, there is a lot that this nurse did, and I'm sure hearing the story now or reading through with you, you can actually see that the NMC most times or all the time, they know what they are doing before they even go ahead to make these decisions. Now let's talk about what this nurse. First of all, you do not know your patient. You cannot separate between who is patient A and who is patient B, because on the grounds of they have similar surnames. Now, I get it. Honestly, I get it. We are human beings, right? And there's a lot of work to do most times. So sometimes it's easy, especially when you're just meeting the patients for the first time, mostly. But honestly, I would believe that in a nursing home, there's longevity of care. And what do I mean by this? Nursing home, you have patients that would be there for long terms. Unlike when you're working in acute hospitals where, patients come in, they stay for a couple of days and they go and you meet fresh patients again. Or even in a day, you can have like 3 or 4 admissions or even more admissions, so you keep meeting different patients here and there. But in a nursing home, I feel like these patients would have been there for a reasonable amount of time to have made you get acquainted with this patient and know who is who and who is who. So for you not to even know your patients, then there's a problem, in that kind of setting. I feel like there should be handover sheets. I don't know how it works in other hospitals, but I feel like, or in care homes or nursing homes, I feel like there should be handover sheets where that has the names of every patient listed out, and then most times you have the names of each patient by their bedside or their bed corners to make you be able to identify which patient is from which patient. You don't know the scenario here or what happened or if all these things were put in place. At the same time, even though they are not put in place, it's your responsibility as a nurse to familiarize yourself with your patients. When you come to work at first, I don't know, I feel like it's what everybody does. When you come to work, the first thing you want to do is go to each patient to introduce yourself to the patient. Hi, so and so, my name is Sandra, I'll be your nurse for tonight. How are you feeling? Try to familiarize yourself with the patient. I don't know, but if that's not what you've been doing, please start incorporating that now. Okay, make sure you familiarize yourself with all your patients. It helps you to start getting acquainted with who is who from the other person. It's common, it's regular to have patients with the same surname or the same first name on the wards. So it's left for you to be able to identify and say, okay, this is patient A1 and this is patient A2. Do you understand? So that is your responsibility. That falls solely on you. Now, this nurse failed to identify what patient was what patient, and she said 2 patients had a similar surname, and then one of them had this do not attempt resuscitation. So when a patient has do not attempt resuscitation, it means if this patient is actively dying, you cannot try to resuscitate the person or bring the person back to life by doing your chest compressions and mouth to mouth, or even trying to shock the patient or anything. You cannot attempt to bring this patient to life in any way, or even giving them drugs that can bring their heart back to life. So that's what it means. So one of these patients that had this surname, a DNA CPR in place, and then you have this other patient that had a similar surname that did not have this DNA CPR in place. And now this patient that did not have the DNA CPR was becoming very ill to the point of actively dying. And this nurse, because she failed to identify which patient was which patient, she thought it was this lady that had DNA CPR in place. And because of that, she did not attempt resuscitating that woman or trying to revive her or bring her back to life using medical proceedings, of course. It's funny because this same nurse went ahead to call relatives of the patient that had a DNR signed. So you don't know which patient is which patient, but somehow you're able to get the correct patient relative to call and tell them that, oh, your patient is deteriorating, which was the wrong call, because this patient that already had a do not resuscitate form signed was not even actively dying at that point. And then she called the person's relatives to tell them that, oh, your patient is going down or the patient is deteriorating. And then the one that was actively dying, that does not have a do not resuscitate form signed, you did not even resuscitate that one. Neither did you even call the person's family member. Now, another thing that this nurse did is when she now realized that, oh my god, I mixed up people and I did not resuscitate this person that needed resuscitation, and then I called the person that had this DNR form signed that was not even actively dying. I called their relatives to tell them that their patient is actively dying now. When she realized it, what you would have done as a nurse, if you watch my previous video, which you will see the link up here, I talked about the importance of duty of candor. Duty of candor is basically owning up to your mistake. Whenever you find out that you made a mistake, immediately the first thing you want to do is try to correct it by informing that patient themselves of what has happened and informing their relative as well, people that are actively involved in their care at that point. You want to tell them what you have done and what you have, the errors that you have made in providing care for their relative. But then when this lady found out that she had made this mistake, what did she do? Instead of her to call back that family member and tell them that, oh, I made a mistake, I made a mix up, I'm so sorry, this, that, she just kept quiet and did not try to right her wrongs. She didn't call them back to tell them that, oh, this is not what is going on, made a mistake or whatever. She didn't do it. She just kept quiet and just minded her own business. That is another problem. Now, another thing is that this lady had called the doctor to tell the doctor that this patient had a DNA CPR in place. That's the patient that did not even have any form signed. She called the doctor and told the doctor that, oh, this person, we're not going to resuscitate her because she has a not attempt resuscitation form in her folder. It was wrong because she didn't have anything signed. So the doctor felt, okay, if she has a do not resuscitate form signed, then there's no need for us to try to make any action. So that's another thing. And then she went ahead, she didn't call the ambulance to say, oh, come and take this patient to a facility where she could be properly cared for. She didn't even make any attempt to try to help this patient, and that patient would probably be alive today if she had done her duties as a nurse. So these are the basis on which this lady has been struck off. And let's not even stop there. Now let's look at another scenario again, because this lady has a lot of cases filed against her. So it was said that there was a time that a male resident sexually harassed a female resident in the nursing home, and she was aware. She didn't say anything about it. Now there's this thing with safeguarding that says if you see something, you say something. So she saw this happen, she didn't say anything, she kept quiet, and because of the fact that she kept quiet, this same incident reoccurred again. That same male patient also harassed that same woman again in that home. This is really terrible. This is really terrible. Now, two things that I'm going to pick from this thing is not even two things. I feel like there are a lot of things that we need to pick up from this as nurses. First off, it's your responsibility to identify your patients and acquaint yourself with your patients. Okay, it's your duty to make sure, if you need to take paper and pen and write, this is this patient, this is this patient. There has to be something. If you have patients that have the same name or the same surname or whatever, there has to be a way that you can separate one patient from the other. You can't tell me that, oh, they have the same name so they also look alike. Let's use an example. The patient's name is, should I say Joy, for instance? You can say Joy 1, Joy 2. You don't have to address them as Joy 1, Joy 2, but in your head or on your notes where you have jotting what you need to do or whatever, you can put it Joy 1, Joy 2. And what I do, you need to be there for the handover, and not just be there physically, but you need to be there with your spirit, body and soul complete. Not that you are physically there but your mind is somewhere else. Because if at all she had taken the handover appropriately, she would have been able to section that, okay, this person is the one that has DNAR and this is the one that doesn't have the DNAR, even though they have similar surnames. And I don't know how it works for people, but I tend to write a lot in my handover sheet. When I'm there for the handover and I'm being told the patient has DNAR in place, it's a very big deal, because it's also a problem if a patient has DNAR signed that's not resuscitate and that patient is actively dying and you go to resuscitate them. It's a problem. Get sued for that by the relatives, because they said if my patient is actively dying, not resuscitate, and if the patient is actively dying and you go to resuscitate, they can actually sue you for doing that. So it's something that you need to be very careful about. And that is why as well you need to acclimatize yourself with what abbreviations are used in your hospital or in your place, because that's another thing. Because if you don't know what something means and you see DNA CPR and you don't even know what it means, then how do you know what to do when you need to take actions and stuff? So yes, what I do is in my handover sheet, I put it there in red. As a nurse, you need to have this kind of pen. If you don't have this type of pen, I do not know what you're doing. You see, it has different colors. So I use black to write normally. That's what we use to write normally. Use black. But when it comes to someone that has DNAR signed, I put this red and I write it beside the person's name boldly. DNAR, because I'm not here to play. I'm not going to go down for things like this that are quite glaring to everybody present. When you come to work, you need to be very cautious. You need to be present. All your being, all your existence needs to be at your workplace. Don't carry your problems and come to work, because it doesn't help anybody and it puts you at risk and puts your patient at risk as well. Aside from knowing your patient, duty of candor. I talked about this in my previous video. Honestly, I think I went into it a little bit, just a little bit anyway. Be honest, okay? Whenever you make a mistake or whenever you do something wrong, no matter what it is, it could be in administering medication, it could be in cases like this, you need to be very honest in everything that you are doing at any point, because the fact that you keep quiet to a particular thing might cause problems for you, if not immediately, but might cause problems later, and then you start regretting, oh, if I had said something earlier, probably this would not have happened at this point. And after saying be honest as well, and you're not just being honest, you be honest to the patients themselves if they are still present, their relatives your line manager and everybody actively responsible for the care of that patient at that point, you need to be honest and you need to be able to tell them, this is what I have done wrong, so that at least if there are early interventions that they could actually create to help that patient, they are able to help the patient immediately. Now, it could even be a medication that this patient is allergic to that you might not have seen, and then you give the patient this medication. You have to immediately say something so that at least they can give remedial actions before it becomes something else and that patient can lose their lives as well. Even if it's not something that they can lose their lives from, you need to still be honest. It's your duty of care to be honest to your patients whenever there is an error or whenever you make a mistake. Now let's look at another one strong term, which is called safeguarding. Now we might decide to go into safeguarding in another video because it's a very broad and complex topic. If you would want to know more about safeguarding, let me know in the comment section and we will be happy to talk about it. Safeguarding is very important. Like I said before, if you see something, you say something. Now people are in the nursing home. These people are there because they are vulnerable. They don't have people to really help them sometimes, or maybe their relatives are too busy to take care of them, and they want a much more professional help caring for their relatives, and they come and put them in your care. Now, I don't know the situation or the condition of this female resident, but I don't think I need to even know. The fact that she's in a nursing home shows that she is vulnerable and she needs care. Elderly women and elderly patients are even on the vulnerable group when it comes to the population in general. So this male resident was sexually abusive to this female resident, and she saw it but didn't say anything. And because she kept quiet, it happened again. Now, this patient was put in your care for you to guard them, for you to take care of them, for you to look out for them. And now you see something like this happen and you feel like, oh, it's not your business. That was the time to have raised a safeguarding approach. That was the time to escalate it, refer to a safeguarding personnel, the team lead of the safeguarding group, so that they can take actions against that male resident. If he was sexually abusive, they had no relation leaving this man and this woman in the same space. Now, she as a nurse failed that female resident because this has happened now twice to that patient, and these are things that affect you mentally. Okay, we all know how big sexual abuse is and the impact it can have on a person. So this nurse really messed up, and if you ask me, I will tell you that this person is not fit to practice as a nurse, because if you cannot have the best interest of your patients at heart, then what are you really working for? What are you being a nurse for? You're not fit to practice if you cannot identify what patient is what patient for, and it goes to the extent of not giving CPR to a patient that needed CPR to the point that they had to die. I don't know how we can come out from that. If you see that a patient is harassing another patient in whatever form, whether it's even sexual abuse or it's physical abuse or whatever, and you do not make a report about it and it happens again, even if it doesn't happen again, that first time you see it is when you should even speak up, and you just felt like it was not your business, then what is your role as a nurse to these patients in the first place? So I honestly agree with the fact that the NMC made this decision, but it has not come to play yet because this lady did not even appear for her hearing. So the NMC called her, tried to make several attempts to reach to her. She did not accept their invite. She didn't show up at the court. So after coming up with the fact that they're going to strike her off, they have decided that she has some period to appeal the order, and after that, once the period they gave her has elapsed, then the striking off order will come into play. But the bottom line is that she's going to get struck off either way. I will strike her off immediately because honestly, I wouldn't feel safe if I had a relative that was under this nurse. So why would that kind of person be allowed to practice nursing? If you don't want to do the job, then don't do the job. If you're just there because you think that you're making few pounds that you can use to take care of yourself and your family, that's very unfair. Of course, all the jobs that we do are to earn us money, because if we cannot even afford living, then how do we give our best? But at the same time, your priority should be the care of your patients, the safety of your patients feeling comfortable and all. There are many other occupations to pick. Why don't you go and do something else than nursing? The main goal of nursing is to care for your patients, to protect your patients' best interests every time, 24/7. And if you cannot do that, if you place money above providing care for your patients, then you are not supposed to be in that profession. And this is not coming from a place of bad energy or whatever. It's just a fact. Okay, everybody should portray the kind of attitude they want if they were to be in that situation. If your relative was supposed to be in that situation, what would you want? What kind of care would you want your relative to have? That's a question that we as health professionals should always ask ourselves in different situations. And these are the things that I'm going home with as a nurse. Please, duty of candor, very important. Be honest every time. Whenever you make a mistake, always coach yourself. It helps you make corrections and it helps them give appropriate interventions when necessary. Whenever you see anything that poses harm or risk to a patient, please raise a safeguarding concern to the appropriate personnel. Report immediately to your line manager and whatever the case is, acclimatize yourself with your patients. Please make sure you know what patient is what patient, and if there's a DNA CPR in place or whatever they put, if it's a false risk patient or they have any CPR in place, or if it's an immunosuppressed patient, you make sure that you are aware. And so many other conditions again that could be wrong with this patient. If the patient needs barrier nursing or whatever, make sure that you know all these things. Make sure that you jot them down on your handover sheet or any piece of paper, just so that you are aware of these things, as they would save you, yourself, and the patient as well, and avert putting anybody at risk. And that is all we're taking away from this matter. Okay guys, if you have enjoyed this video, please like this video. Now that I'm talking to you, like this video, please like the video. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And I would love to hear your opinion in the comment section as well. This is an interactive series. Okay, let me know what you think about everything that has been said regarding this issue. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you even know anything about safeguarding, or if you've heard about it before, or if this is the first time you're hearing about safeguarding, or if this is the first time you're hearing about duty of candor, or if you're just hearing about this DNA CPR that I've been talking about in this video. Before it used to be DNAR, but now they now say DNA CPR. That's the current one that is being used. So tell me, let's talk in the comment section. Let me know what you think about all this, and if you've had similar things happen, or maybe similar mistakes that have happened, or where you're not able to differentiate one patient from one patient. Let's just talk in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about this whole situation. And as you know, we always bring the series every Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. So what you want to do is subscribe, press the subscribe button and the bell notification button as well, so that you'll be notified whenever the series comes to your screen. And guys, I will see you in my next video. Until then, take care. Kisses. Bye.